Hey everyone, here's our project, which is a take on modernizing walkers and changing their design in a way where they can effectively go through sand and other kind of fluid-like terrains, which wheels would otherwise have difficulty traveling over. When we actually research what they have on the market right now, you have these rollators that basically cost anywhere from about $1,100 to $1,500 on average. And they're kind of clunky, they're big. So we wanted to see if we could switch that design up in a way where it would be more effective and different. And the way that we chose to do that was basically to modify the frame and extend it forward. We did that in order to, in case sand built up, kind of alter the pivot point from the person who's pushing in the rear and basically make it harder for it to tip over and tip forward from that rotational force. But also what we did was, instead of wheels, we tried to use skis. And the reason for that was basically there are extreme sports called sandboarding, sand skiing, and people managed to get to speeds of about 56 miles an hour going down dunes. So we figured in principle the same idea would be effective here. So with our first prototype, we actually built the ski, but the front was rather flat and almost contributed to a bulldozer effect, causing sand to pile up. And as it was piling up, it caused that resistance that basically prevented the walker from functioning correctly. So upon kind of looking at different designs and effectively treating sand like a fluid, the idea of how speedboats and boats in general were designed and taking from them their the shape of their hull. We tried to modify the front of the ski to be more knife-like, and that was to part the sand rather than to push it. And we tried two designs. The first still had that wall effect, and it actually caused the same issue of almost that bulldozer-like resistance, whereas the second design allowed it to glide freely and very smoothly. In essence, when we saw that, we dropped the former design and stuck both skis to the design you see on the left, and it worked so much better that way. So in effect, what we did was we still put wheels on the front because people need to travel from their vehicles to the sand. And then what we did was we slid off the front legs and the rear legs and literally just slid on the lightweight PVC frame onto the skis. We tested it in two different conditions as well, both dry sand and wet sand, and surprisingly, while we thought there would be more resistance from the wet sand, it was about the same actually. It just cut right through. Beyond those changes to the overall design, some safety considerations we also implemented were a light, so not only could the user be seen, but also see ahead of them at night. But also we added a horn in case of any emergency, so people could find them, hear them, and they could gain attention as needed. Overall, the design works pretty well, but subtle improvements that in theory could make it work better are just that if you look here, you see that A is the design that we have currently, and while it does have the shape of a speedboat, that bottom portion that juts into the ground causes it to dig. And so it does, while it does work and cuts well, it also could work better if the design in B was implemented, because you wouldn't have it digging, you would have it instead hopping across the sand and only cutting as necessary, where A cuts as a consequence of the design itself and can ultimately lead it to being less efficient. An area of improvement for the overall design would be to integrate the skis into the frame. So right now, the legs would have to be removed by removing a pin, and then you would have to slide the skis on. However, what we considered doing with more time and potentially more resources would be to take the frame we have now and attach some kind of swinging mechanism here. And these mechanisms would basically allow the skis, which would be at a 90-degree angle now folded inward, to swing downwards. And when they do, they would also have some kind of clip right here that the wheels would clip onto. So it would also require that these wheels turn in at 90 degrees as well. And so basically what that would look like once the skis did fold down is something kind of like this. And so here, once the skis do fold down, these little clips right here, once the wheel rotates 90 degrees, would lock the wheel in place. And since they only fold outwards, you would just need this to have some kind of ramp that, at the right angle, would make the wheel slide right off, and they could fold right back into that kind of 90-degree position. So anytime you would go onto sand or some kind of slippery terrain like that, you could just fold them right down.